The concept of a Minister of Electricity to deal with our deepening power crisis has already taken on a comedic hue, with many questioning the rationale behind it and some labelling it a PR stunt. The presidency came out swinging, calling the criticism misguided and calling for space, instruments and capability to reverse load shedding. The minister would work full-time with the board of Eskom and its management team, but questions are being asked about the specifics of the job and where that would leave the role of the Public Enterprises Minister, who already works closely with Eskom, and whether this would be a duplication, a wasted duplication of roles. Dr. Levy Ndou joins me now. Thank you very much, Dr. Ndou, for your time. We appreciate you. Is this performance politics or designed for real impact?
Good evening, Iman. Good evening to the viewers at home. Well, I think we are in a crisis in South Africa, and we all agree that indeed we have got an energy crisis. And there has been calls from different political parties, from organized members of society, and everybody else that something has to be done to deal with electricity. We have had the Minister of Public Enterprises, who appeared to have been blamed for the collapse of the different SOEs in South Africa. We have had the Minister of Energy, who South Africans have been saying that he appears, or the department appears, to be doing less to deal with the energy crisis. Now that we all agree that we have this problem, there has been some force that has been coming as well that says that you need to act very quickly and ensure that load shedding is actually something of the past. And I think that is what has actually necessitated the pressure that the president had in ensuring that the Ministry of Electricity has to be established. But equally, I think there are processes that came before this announcement was made. The ANC Lekgotla, the government Lekgotla, after those two important sessions, the president came with an announcement of the energy ministry. What would the electricity ministry has to bring is something that we're still waiting for. But what South Africans are actually eagerly waiting to see is the end to load shedding and nothing else.
There's a couple of things in there, and I just want you to clarify for me whether you think it is do you think it's a good idea to have a Minister of Electricity, simply?
Well, I think it is, and it is also not. It would be a good idea if indeed it's a temporary measure because there is an announcement of the state of national disaster. I think when you've got a state of national disaster, you would need certain people to oversee these activities and ensure that something is actually done drastically. It might not be a good idea if you're still going to have the Ministry of Energy and also have the Ministry of Public Enterprises, because that will appear to be a duplication. In my view, this might be a temporary measure that government is taking, and when everything else is addressed, then they'll have to revert back or look at the rearrangement of government.
Yeah.
Equally, the president talks about the possibility, and all of us are waiting, about the possibility of cabinet reshufflement. Maybe we'll then have to know what then is going to be the status of the other two departments.
Yeah, and whether, we might have to, lose one or two others and keep this one. And in fact, you've answered the question around one of the important key missing details on whether this would be a temporary responsive measure rather than, a long-term thing when we already have a Minister of Public Enterprises. You've answered my second question as well about government and getting the ministries that do have the job to do, to either guard public enterprises or anything else, to do them effectively. And it seems the public consensus is that our leaders are not effective. Do you think that, in a sense, he's unnecessarily complicating how to fix this? I mean, isn't the right move to put pressure, because a Ministry of Electricity would also have to be brought up to speed to understand the intricacies, and we understand it's a very difficult beast to understand, Eskom and electricity provision in South Africa. Do you think he's unnecessarily complicating this?
Well, he might be unnecessarily complicating it, especially when you're still going to have the other two ministries running. But at the same time, he might be simplifying it if indeed you have one person who will actually be focusing on electricity, and we still have to wait for the actual responsibilities that this ministry is actually going to be doing. What I think would then be an opportunity to answer all these questions will be when an announcement of cabinet reshufflement would be made.
Right.
Maybe some of the ministries will have to be done away with, and that is when the actual mandate of the Minister of Electricity will have to be outlined.
Two quick things I want to ask you before I let you go, but I fear that it's not going to warrant a very easy and quick answer. Do you think that the state of disaster is warranted?
Well, I think there is general consensus and a lot of voice that spoke about the necessity of the national state of disaster. Some political parties, including the DA and the IFP, have come out openly to say this is the moment where the state of disaster has to be introduced so that things are supposed to be done speedily and to avoid unnecessary red tapes. If it is in the best interest of all of us and to ensure that we've got electricity and end load shedding, then is the best decision that government has taken.
And finally, I was thinking of, an old movie that I was watching with Robin Williams. Was this Sona, the "Oh Captain, my Captain" speech that the country needed? Did he rouse the national spirit? Did he animate the dead bones of hope and steer us across the waves of turbulence onto the shores of certainty? Pardon my poetry, Levi, but did he do that?
As predicted, the State of the Nation address had to focus mainly on matters relating to Eskom and electricity. And for me, it was a state of electricity disaster, and that is why the president has to spend more time even to talk about electricity and the steps that are supposed to be taken. What the president has emphasized is resilience and hope. And that can only happen only when the government is taking action, decisive action that will bring change. Only when government is going to say load shedding has come to an end. That is when we're going to say the president has been relevant. But generally, there are a lot of things that the president raised which could not be of great interest to many people, because without electricity, everything else suffers.
Dr. Levy Ndou, thank you for your analysis and your perspective this evening. We appreciate it. Political analyst Dr. Levy Ndou.